New York Times facing criticism for its Eileen Gu headline. The New York Times is catching heat online for its headline about Chinese-American Winter Olympian Eileen Gu. Gu, 22, competes internationally for China. She won 2 silver medals and 1 gold medal at the 2026 Games in Italy. Gu has 6 total Winter Olympics medals in 2 games, competing for China. While Gu was born in the United States, she chose to compete internationally for China. It's a decision that has sparked a lot of controversy. Gu, the highest-paid athlete at the Winter Games, has defended her decision, saying it wasn't about money. Gu has also revealed that she's faced a lot of vitriol, both online and in person, for making her decision. Gu, understandably, has received a lot of media attention. The New York Times sports section, The Athletic, recently sparked some controversy with its headline about Gu. Inside the mind of Eileen Gu, Winter Olympics superstar, and so much more. With 3 silvers and 3 golds to her name across 2 Olympics, Gu is a freak of nature, extraordinary in every sense of the word. So what is next for a young woman who seems to have it all? The Times analysis said. Gu believes she's been very upfront. I guess it's more like, I don't know, it's very honest, she said of her performance. It makes you look in the mirror and see who you are. You can't lie to yourself, the work you've done or haven't. The New York Times, which had a piece criticizing the U.S. men's hockey team for visiting the White House, continued its praise of Gu. You would be forgiven if you thought Gu was a quasi-human robot expertly created by artificial intelligence. So eloquent are her responses to the media, but she is not immune to pressure, and after losing her balance on her first run in the halfpipe, she felt it, the piece wrote. Gu bet on herself, not only in this event, but even daring to compete in 3 Winter Olympic events, slopestyle, halfpipe, and big air, the only female freestyle skier to do so, the Athletics analysis said. Fans take issue with praise of Gu. Fans are taking issue with praise of an athlete that chose to compete for China over the United States. I make no excuses for my distaste for Gu. Having the right to ski for anyone you wish, even if includes an enemy or threat to the US, is your own business. I can still maintain it was classless to do so. Where do you plan to live for the next couple of 10 or so years should show where your allegiance should remain, and I wager it is not China, one fan wrote. I really think that you should not be able to have dual citizenship. Your alliance should be to one country. The U.S. citizens that choose to represent another country should have to give up their U.S. citizenship, one fan added. Why is the U.S. media pushing the storyline of Gu? Did they publish any stories about any other Olympian who lives and trains in the U.S. but competed for another country? Did they push any stories about any other Chinese athlete? Interview them on TV, one fan added. Others, meanwhile, are defending her. Gu is excellent at what she does. It's a shame she chose to represent China, but that's her decision. It does not take anything away from what she accomplished, one fan added. Where do you stand on the Gu controversy? In the modern media landscape, headlines are no longer mere summaries, they are verdicts. They travel faster than articles, spread wider than context, and often shape public opinion before the first paragraph is even read. When the New York Times published its headline about Olympic freestyle skier Eileen Gu, it unintentionally reignited a long-standing debate about identity, framing, and the subtle power embedded in journalistic language. Eileen Gu is not just an athlete. She is a symbol of global mobility, multicultural identity, and the shifting dynamics of international sports. Born in the United States to a Chinese mother, raised in California, and later choosing to compete for China in the Winter Olympics, Gu represents a generation that does not fit neatly into singular national narratives. Her decision to represent China brought admiration from some, skepticism from others, and intense media scrutiny from nearly everyone. It was within this climate that a New York Times headline drew criticism. The backlash was not merely about wording, it was about implication. Readers felt that the framing subtly cast doubt, questioned loyalty, or emphasized division rather than achievement. And in an era hyper-aware of bias and representation, even a few words can carry enormous weight. The headline as a cultural flashpoint. Headlines operate as gateways. In the attention economy, they are designed to attract clicks, spark emotion, and condense complexity into digestible fragments. But compression can distort. Nuance is often the first casualty. Critics argued that the headline about Gu focused less on her athletic triumph and more on the geopolitical tension surrounding her identity. Instead of celebrating performance, it seemed, in the eyes of some readers, to frame her story through the lens of national allegiance. That choice of emphasis struck a nerve. Why? Because identity politics and media framing are deeply intertwined. When an athlete with dual cultural ties succeeds, the narrative can easily shift from remarkable achievement to which side does she belong to. That shift says as much about the storyteller as it does about the subject. For some observers, the headline reflected an American-centric viewpoint, one that interpreted Gu's decision primarily as a departure rather than an expansion. Instead of seeing her as a bridge between cultures, critics felt the framing suggested defection, ambiguity, or contradiction. Journalism in a globalized world. The criticism highlights a broad attention in Western media, how to cover stories involving China without falling into geopolitical framing. In recent years, U.S.-China relations have become increasingly strained. Against that backdrop, even cultural or sports stories can become proxies for political narratives. Eileen Gu's Olympic success occurred during a highly scrutinized Winter Games hosted in Beijing. Coverage of the event often blended sports reporting with political commentary about human rights, diplomacy, and national image. In that atmosphere, Gu's choice of representation was never going to be interpreted as purely athletic. But critics of the headline argued that journalism has a responsibility to separate accomplishment from assumption. They suggested that focusing on her choice more than her skill risked reducing her to a symbol of geopolitical rivalry rather than acknowledging her as an individual athlete. The pushback was swift, especially on social media, where headlines are screenshot, shared, and dissected in isolation. Many readers never clicked through to read the full article. The headline itself became the story, the speed of outrage. The controversy also reveals something about how media criticism now functions. In previous decades, a questionable headline might generate letters to the editor. Today, it triggers trending hashtags, viral threads, and global debate within hours. This acceleration changes the stakes for journalists. A headline crafted under deadline pressure can ignite international backlash before editors have time to reassess tone or implication. The feedback loop is immediate and unforgiving.